Hello guys, this is Daniel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use certain programming approaches with advanced use of router to solve complex problems in Make. And if you are familiar with programming, for example in JavaScript or Python, the usual approach to solve complex problem is to basically set variables and then get them in subsequent steps, transform them, and you go then step by step by setting and getting, transforming all the variables you may have. This approach can be replicated in Make to solve complex problems. So basically you also can set variables and get them to get the solution to your complex problem. So in this video, we will try to construct this sentence based on this array. So this is an array of collections with 3 people in it and their ages, right? So it's 25, 50 years old, 25 years old. And at the end, when the scenario is completed, I want it to return this sentence. The average age in the group is X, and having the number calculated, the max age is epsilon and the minimum age is Z. And as I said, we will solve the problem by setting and getting variables with smart use of router. So let's go to Make and let's solve the problem. So here I'm using parse.json module to basically just parse that small array of mine. So when I run the scenario, we can see it was processed and I got 3 bundles out of it, basically 3 collections with Daniel, Peter, and Joe. And now the question is how to do average, how to do max, and how to do min, or how to get minimum age from this group, while we still have only one array as the input. So the first step we need to do here is to use router. So I'll use router. Then you might be aware that there is a module in tools called numeric aggregator. So I'm gonna use that module. Let me get rid of this. And the source module for me will be parse.json. My aggregate function will be one of these. So as I said, we want to get average, maximum, and minimum value, basically. So in this first step, I will get average. And I will get average of the age. So let's run the scenario now. And the result is 33. Which is correct, right? 100 divided by 3 is 33.333. Now, if we were not deploying this trick with router, which will continue shortly, there is no way to continue this route to get the maximum value, for example, because if I wanted to use the aggregator, it no longer sees this first module, right? Because we aggregated the numbers here, so this is what this aggregator sees as the first thing. You no longer can work with these values, right? So you are kind of screwed, and you have to find your way around it. So first of all, let's finish this first route. So we got the result, the average is 33. So let's set a variable. It's always better to use this set multiple variables module instead of set variable, because this just lets you set more than one variable in case you ever need to in future. So I will set a variable, I will call it average, and I will map the result. So now I have the average 33. Now let's get the maximum value. So here we can establish a new route by again using the numeric aggregator module from tools, and this time we will again use parse.json module as the source, but we will want to get the maximum value from the age, and it should return 50. So let's run it, and now we have the maximum value. Let's again end this route similarly as we ended it here. So let's set multiple variables. Let's call it max and result. Now we will do the similar thing for the minimum value. We can just copy these two modules by holding Shift on your keyboard if you are on Windows and marking those two modules, and then Control-C, Control-V, and then plug it back to the router. And this time you will want to calculate the minimum value, and we should rename the variable name to min or minimum, whatever is your variable name. What you fancy, you can write it, you just need to remember the names. Okay, so let's run this scenario to make sure it's working fine. So we have our average value, we have our max value, we have our min value. And now the final step, this is where the trickery comes. We need to construct this sentence, right? So we want to say the average age in the group is something, the max age is something, and the minimum age is something. So how to go about it? We will introduce the final route here, and I will make it incorrect on purpose, and then I will explain why. You would probably guess this solution, but we'll be getting multiple variables which we set in the preceding routes. So we would get the AVG, we would get the max variable, and we would get the min variable. But there is an issue with this. When you run the scenario, you can see that this module is producing 3 bundles. Right, so the last one is fine, but the preceding 2 are weird. The issue here is that the JSON is producing 3 bundles. So these routes are fine because we are aggregating the multiple bundles into one result, so there is always one result at the end. But here there is no aggregation, so this module is producing 3 bundles where the last one is the only one correct. So how to solve this problem? So to solve this problem, we can, for example, use array aggregator, which will use the JSON module as the source, and we will just aggregate name and age, even though we don't have a real use for the aggregation, to be honest. But the outcome of this will be only one bundle, and this is what we want to have at the end. So let's run the scenario. Now we have one array at the end, which is fine, but we don't really use it, and we don't really need it. But at the same time, I retrieved the variables from here, from here, from here, as one bundle, right? Because there is only one bundle produced, so the scenario is now working only with one bundle. So we use this kind of as a side step to just aggregate everything into one bundle, so we don't have 3 bundles out of this module. And we finally have all the values we wanted to have, and now we just have to plug them into that sentence of mine. So let me copy the sentence, and let's set the final variable. So again, we would use set multiple variables, even though we will be setting one. You can call it final sentence. And we can say average here, max here, and min here. Now, let's run the scenario. And voila, this is our result. The average age in the group is 33.3, the max age is 50, the min age is 25. Of course, we should probably make it nicer in the real life by formatting the ugly number to, for example, 1 decimal point. So if I run this again, now it's more user-friendly. And that's what brings me to the conclusion. We solved our complex problem by setting multiple independent variables, right? So here we set the average by using the numeric aggregator. Here we figure out the maximum value from all those bundles. And here we figure out the minimum value from all those bundles. The issue why we cannot do this in one route is that after you run the aggregation here, you cannot really run another aggregation from this module, right? Because it kind of becomes locked, like it's invisible basically for subsequent module from here forward, right? So I cannot run another aggregation here to get the max value and the min value. So I had to use different routes to get my results like this. And then here I use the array aggregator to just aggregate everything into one bundle, even though I don't really work with this, but the only purpose of this is to have just one bundle at the end. Then I'm using get multiple variables module, which allows you to retrieve variables which were set even in different routes. That's the main trick here, basically. So I got my values, and then I just plug them into my final sentence. There is also one note I would like to mention, and it's very important to connect the routes to the router in correct order. So for example, if I unlink everything, and I connect this as first, this as second, this as third, and this as fourth, and I reorder, what the scenario is now going to do is that it will try to get variables here in the first route, but these variables are not set yet, so it will be blanks. See, there's like nothing because the scenario is setting those variables later. So the main message here is that the order in which you connect the routes to the router, that's the order of execution in the scenario. So logically, you cannot get variables when you don't set them yet, when you have not set them yet, right? So you have to be careful when you are linking your routes to router, and you have to link them in the logical order so you can retrieve those calculated variables from preceding routes in the final route. So now when I unlinked this first route, this originally first route, and I will relink it back, it will become the fourth route because now it's kind of linked as the fourth route. And when I auto-align, it will basically show me which route goes first and which route goes last, right? So this one will go first, this one second, this one third, this one fourth. And this is what I want, right? First, I need to set the variables, and then I need to get them later here. And then I need to produce this sentence. So let me run it for the last time. See, so now it's working again. And my sentence is nice and beautiful. So this is it. I hope this is useful for you. Still, my example was not that complicated, right? But the main point which I am trying to demonstrate here is that when you really know how to use the router along with setting variables and then getting them later, you can really solve very, very complex problems which cannot be solved just in one route. So remember this. This can be very useful in your complex scenarios, and I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers!